and we get taught one way in our teacher trainings, you know, and I'll get into equipment in a second, but all these things inform the way they were taught, and then we get locked into this way, and we might venture off to the left or right a little bit. But then when someone says, do it like this, I know it's not taught this way, but try that, and then it makes sense for me.
Listen, the difficulty of training, of teaching apprentices, and the idea of how do you distill, how do we squeeze, you know, years of seeing, of learning how to adapt, how do you make that, you know, in bite-sized chunks accessible to apprentices, to new teachers, and that is any kind of training. I mean, if you're studying to be a surgeon, if you're, you know, in a bakery learning to be a baker, I mean, all of those things kind of demand this narrowness of focus when it comes to training. But then when you're faced in, you know, with real world situations, you recognize that, okay, this is what I've learned. This is the situation. How do I adapt? How do I morph what I've learned? And just a little bit of an aside, I have a lot of machinist porn that comes across my Instagram feed. And I'm not a trained machinist or an engineer, but I have such respect and appreciation for them. And so when they post, you know, how they work through something, how they set up a piece of metal on a drill press, or how they go about solving this problem, and, you know, 15 people underneath go, oh, I learned it like this. I never thought about doing it like this. That's a great idea. Have you seen this? Or have you ever tried, you know, the knowledge that is passed down. And these are all people, you know, that have been doing this for 20 years. It's their livelihood, but they recognize within themselves that, oh, there's multiple ways of coming at this.
Yes.
So I think it's the same. It should be the same way.
It should be. It
you
should
know,
be for any craft.
There's a respect for what has preceded. There's an appreciation for what that learning and tradition is. But even those, I'm going to guess, even those elders, those founders, those originators, they themselves expressed a greater range, but they understood when they had to teach it, they had to distill it so that it could be communicated.
Absolutely. It's like the saying, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing.
Oh, that's a good one.
So what is the main thing? When you come to certain elements, exercises, philosophies, how do we capture the main thing? So someone has a launch point to, from that place of fundamentals, explore other ways of doing other principles, whatever it is, right? So that's kind of what I come back to. Like, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will always, I like to hold up Mary Bowen in that manner. I'm classically trained. The classical methodology, it just speaks to me personally. I am compulsive. I don't mind, you know, doing the same thing. Show me a concrete wall, give me a spoon, say dig. As long as you keep giving me spoons, I'll just keep digging at it. But Mary Bowen, when she moves and you kind of look and go, oh, that looks, where is that coming from? But when she talks you through where she is thinking and how she came about that movement, then you go, oh, those are the principles in action. And yes, it might not look the way you were taught it, but it is being practiced on a body that is needing something specific.
Absolutely.
You know, it's not abstract. It might look different, but the guiding principle in theory that she is projecting on that is valid and the same. It's constant,
Yes.
consistent.
Consistent, right? So then that kind of ties into a conversation around equipment, right? Because then if you have a bunch of tools in your toolbox, so to speak, in terms of ways to teach exercises, I may have been taught on Grot's equipment, do an online class and see the person has a stot chair in the room, and I can be like, okay, well, these are the exercises we're going to do. This is how it's different on this piece. This is how we're going to work on that. And I've experienced that from some really, really excellent teachers where in my head, I'm thinking they're classically trained. They have Grots in the background in every one of their pictures. And then they give you this great workout with contemporary equipment or whatever, and they can translate it.
Yeah, listen, I've heard of instances where someone's going into a workshop and they see, you know, some contemporary equipment, and, you know, the classical instructor will be like, oh, no, you can't practice Pilates on that, you know. It is so narrow, and I think it's almost belittling the integrity, the robustness of the method. I taught photography for years, and and there would be stories of a manufacturer stopped producing a paper or a film, and some photographers would buy up, you know, freezer fulls of this, and when it went out of stock, they just, you know, oh, I can't go on. And I would have to express to my students, it doesn't matter if your photograph is hanging on a gallery wall, if it's in newsprint, that image needs to be strong enough to speak through the mediums, no matter what, you know. If a photograph can only work when it's hung on the wall and it's lit just at, you know, 70 degrees angle and it's color balanced, like if it's so fragile that all of those things need to be in place first, then that photograph is not speaking strong enough. And like with our movement, if our method, if our discipline and practice is not strong enough to overcome, you know, those differences, well then, you know, you're not internalizing it enough. It's not coming from a deep enough place. It should be strong enough to support all of those things. And that's why when I would go to a mat class and there would be one instructor or another instructor, and they might be asking something different from me of how you point your foot or how you move through side series or whatever.
Yes.
My responsibility is my discipline of my body should be that I can do what they're asking because I'm in control of my body. And if I just keep doing the movement that I'm used to, then I'm just moving out of habit. I'm not moving out of control.
Yes.
So that's where we come from.
So Anita, Explore Pilates, just put a line that you said, and I just took a screenshot of it because I think it's brilliant. The message speaks past the medium.
I get very frightened when people start quoting me back.
But if it's truth, it's truth.
Martin, I'll walk away from here in 5 minutes after. I'll be going, what did I say? I don't know.
It's immortalized now. It's like social media has captured it. It's out there in the universe.
I'm praying. Okay, go ahead. Okay, so.
So unpack that. Like, can you, like, the message speaks past the medium. You said it. Can you just say a little bit more about that?
Listen, I mean, we could go from medium to medium. It's an example I've used in the past. You know, a violin virtuoso is at, you know, someone's birthday party, you know, the cousin's birthday party, and there's a band playing, and they say, oh, so-and-so is here. He's a concert, you know, violinist. You know, hand them a violin, and they'll grab the violin, and they'll play it. They'll play it, and they'll make you cry with the sound that comes from it. They don't look at the violin and go, "Oh, that's a high school, throw off. I'm not going to play that."
Yeah. Right.
They go, they tweak, tweak, tweak. They tune it. They go, "That's close enough." They play on it. So it's that kind of idea. No matter where you are in the spectrum, you have a responsibility with a talent. You have an audience and an opportunity to communicate to them, and you use whatever that talent is to communicate to those people because you've been given the opportunity. So I see it across multiple fields that you just can't let those materials get in the way of you saying what your revelation is.
A poor craftsman blames his tools.
Yes. Did you hang out with my mom?
I hung out with my dad.
I'm going to pick on you a bit because I saw I saw you drinking cider vinegar and water.
Yes.
Thrown back, and it's a drink that we drink, but we're a little bit more fancy. So we put a little bit of honey in and a squeeze of lime.
There you go.
Just to make it
take the edge off there a bit.
But you got everyone out there. Be careful, because if you're doing too high concentrate, it'll eat away the enamel of your teeth. So be careful.
There's your public service announcement.
That's it. Screenshot that. Post that. But before we go any deeper and too much further, I really would like to give you credit for you had your co-hosts come up and speak about what they were doing, and the service that you offer. And I'll call out Darian Gold also.
Yes.
What you people do in terms of creating a community, creating opportunity for people to come on and speak. I don't think, you're not making millions off of this. This is a lot of effort and time and energy, just your willingness to open yourself up. That should always be applauded, because the technology has so many ill effects. The technology has so many dark sides, but this is just a lovely example of what it does provide. And Mark Zuckerberg and everything. Okay, but again, it's a tool that we're being responsible to use.
Yes.
Right. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. In the same way, I celebrate you and what you do. As soon as you turn the screen, I was like, "What's that behind you?" Because I don't have that skill set to bend metal and look at things and see how can I make this better. I mean, I might think about it, but to do it the way that you do it.
Sometimes I think about waxing my car, and then I go, "Oh no." That's never gonna happen.
Yes. Well, before we came out here on live, we were talking about that and how everyone has different areas of passion, different skill sets. And we're talking about Kathy Ross Nash, how she has a black belt and how she trains dogs. We all have multiple things. We're multidimensional in so many different ways. We have someone who teaches and someone who builds, and then we all have our thing, right? So when we're doing that well, I appreciate and I receive that celebration of what I do, but I also recognize the fact that all of us have that. Are we making the most with that? Are we enjoying that? Are we capitalizing on our own talents and exploring those to their end limits?
I think one of the problems with any group dynamics. It doesn't matter if it's a boardroom. It doesn't matter if it's a church. It doesn't matter, if you've got 5 people coming together, 4 of them are going to recognize they have familiarities and commonalities, and that one person over there doesn't. And they're going to look at that person kind of side-eyed and go, what are you doing here? Because you always ask these questions that make our meetings go so much longer. You know, why are you here?
Yes.
And so,
Are you speaking from life experience there?
always. I would have teachers in middle school. I would have teachers that would take my chair and put it out into the hallway and just escort me out of the classroom and sit me out in the hallway. Other teachers would walk by and they go, what are you doing here? I go, well, so-and-so put me out in the hallway again. And then be like, oh.
Do you want me to bring Tammy back on so we can talk about childhood trauma for a moment? Just kind of go in that path?
I got all my own. I don't.
Okay. Sorry, so back to the boardroom, yes.
So I think in the same way that because so many people in Pilates come from a common background, and I'm being the most broadest of you know, kind of painting with a brush, but the dance background, even the movement background.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, earlier on, you were saying very kindly how we have so many common, you know, background, and you mentioned movement, and I have to qualify that, because growing up, I was teased, you know, mercilessly for being fat, and I had and have sensory issues. I had learning difficulties. I mean, it was all a curse, and it was growing up and, you know, coming to terms with things, but finding photographs of myself, you know, when I was, you know, preteen or teenager, and going, oh no, I wasn't fat at all. You know, I mean, right, I was big, but I was in no way in any range that we would clinically say obese by any stretch. And to this day, I run barefoot. No great distances, 1.5 miles or so. I run every other day for the most part. And it was hot a week or so back, and I'm running without a shirt. And someone drives by and yells out, "Put on a shirt." And I'm going, oh. I mean, you know, I mean, I'm not that we're obsessive, but I'm at the thinnest probably that I've ever been in my life, and
yes.
I've been working out forever. Like, no, I think I'm pretty okay.
You're good.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
good shirtless.
I got some back fat, but okay. So I'm going through this, and you know, those scars from trauma, but I'm pretty resolved. I mean, we've got 2 grown kids, you know. We've been married for 30 plus years. I mean things are good. Yeah, thank God.
Yes.
But you hear, and then I realize that people take notice. You run barefoot, and so there's a guy that when I'm running, I mean, he must be crazy, because he's saying to me, "Oh, you're like Adonis. You're like a Greek, you know, statue running." You know.
Yeah.
And it was the same guy when he was driving. He was teasing. He was like, "Put on your shirt because you're making us all look bad." Yeah. All look bad.
Right.
But it was just that kind of funny, you know, it's just that, you know, how you take something in, how you hear it, you know, what in the past does it wake up that no one, he is completely appreciative. I mean, he now says, you know, when he sees my wife walking, you know, he says, "I'm running up and down the driveway barefoot. I'm trying." It's like, you know, so he was in complete appreciation.
Yeah, he's inspired.
Yeah, but you know, you hear one thing in a car driving by or whatever.
Yes.
But it is, to bring it back, that history of where your movement comes from and how it comes. And so when you get a bunch of people in the room who have such a common background of where their movement comes from, their discipline, their appreciation, not taking any of those things away, their sincerity, but it becomes a common pool that they all draw from. And
right.
Again, I'll call her out specifically. Mijo Wiggins, we love dearly, and if it wasn't for Mijo, we wouldn't be here right now. So Mijo was completely instrumental. Blame her. But coming from a background of photography and photographers and street photographers and documentary or journalists, it's a pretty thick-skinned bunch of people.
Okay.
And especially back in the day of film photography where the cameras were big and you were confrontational when you went out, you had a thick skin. And
yes.
You're always removed from what's going on, so you're kind of objective, and it makes you a little bit cynical, and it makes you a little bit, quick when it comes to commentary.
Yes. That's nice.
That's nice. But I would have to, and again, Leanie, my wife, who is so loving and sensitive, I would be saying things just out of jest, and I would be hurting people's feelings in the Pilates community because I just didn't recognize how they related to things.
Yes.
And some things some things you just don't, poke at and make fun at. So it was Leanie that goes, you better check yourself because people,
yes.
People aren't taking this, too well. I was like, oh. But it, so it became, I really had to go, oh, this is a different group of people, and they're common amongst themselves. Mm-hmm. God bless them; they're all beautiful, but they're different. So that's why when you talk about where people come from in movement, it's a serious aspect to say, well, okay, but where do these other people? How do we find these other people? And again, I'm going to completely go off, but with the machinists, who I love dearly,
yes,
you'll find Instagram accounts, and forgive me, hot girl machinists. I mean, you'll find, and it's
everything
not, it's not the hot girl thing. It's the fact that there are women who are machinists and they're being recognized. And yes, that's great. Mm-hmm. I can't find a black machinist in all of Instagram. I mean, just really think about that. I mean, there's a whole continent of Africa where most of the people are black, and they have plenty of machinists, but I can't find Instagram feeds for any of them. Mm-hmm. And, that's, we talk about systemic racism and such, that is a serious issue. And
right. You mentioned that too with accessibility too on one of the other podcasts. Like, I mean, you're making equipment, you're doing all those things, and this is like where we get so locked into it has to be this brand and it has to be these things. Yes. And it's like, well, you're closing off sections of the population by making it so rigid. So that's another example of it, right?
Absolutely, and it's one of the reasons why we make such an effort to just try and how do you whittle away at those barriers? Give me a spoon, give me a concrete wall. I'll just keep digging at it. How do we do it? And I think equipment is an aspect of it. And again, there's the greatest and deepest appreciation for those instructors who just have, perfect pitch in terms of how a spring feels, in terms of how a piece of apparatus moves. I mean, I appreciate it. Sean Gallagher, Elaine Ewing. I mean, they dig through the archives and they have such a sincere appreciation for how the apparatus, came about. What's its history? What's Joe's intentions? What did he change? What stayed the same? Again, I don't want to discredit. I don't want to move that to the side. Not an iota. keep it firmly centered and in focus.
Yes.
But how do we try to bring more people, into this?
Yes. And also you're saying with your equipment how you use Grot Springs. And it's almost like what you're doing is giving people a place of familiarity while you allow them to venture off center a little bit.
Yeah, yes, yes. Most people's, the two primary things is, for those that are sensitive, the tension spring and the feel of a spring, yes, they have perfect pitch. Second is muscle memory. Just like
Yes.
like a violiner plays a fretless instrument, there's that muscle memory that hits that note, and that's that E flat or whatever. When you move through your routine, and in my teaching, I stress what transition means from every exercise. I
Yes.
use transition to highlight preparation. We advance the transition before we advance the exercise. If you can't move well through a more advanced transition,
Yes.
well, then you're not really ready for the exercise. So we'll work on the transition, and then we'll feed into the exercise. And
Yes.
the clients know that.
So Joseph, can I just pause you for a quick second here? Everyone, as you're just listening to Joseph talk, we were talking earlier about just that celebration of, like, we use a Kathy Ross Nass example of like going from a black belt to training dogs to teaching Pilates. We just ebbed and flowed from the intricacies of crafting equipment to the nuances of teaching transitions to the next exercise. That's like next level stuff. I'm always trying to work that into my work, is like, how can I get better at all these little pieces and give that expression? So I didn't want to let that just fly by, because like, you're building the equipment that you're teaching them this amazing methodology of teaching on at the same time. That's pretty special.
Yeah, but that's not unique. I say it. I mean, there's no false humility. I mean, Marat, legacy
He is
out of
next
Turkey,
level.
and Prague with Scandinavia. I mean, there are a number of teachers who are fine craftspeople, much finer than I would ever be. I come to my solutions out of necessity to make them affordable, accessible, easy to produce.
Like Joseph Pilates did.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I look at the stuff he makes and I go, oh, gee, but okay. Okay. He was working with what he had, and that's fine.
Right.
And that's
Yes.
fine. But the idea of, it doesn't matter what you are. I mean, if you're a baker, if you're a candlestick maker, your discipline and the insight that skill offers you should flow into everything else that you do. And I'll tease you again about the waxing the car. Karate Kid, wax on, wax off. I mean, there's that idea of, oh no, if you're working consciously, you should be able to bring all of this, of what you are, into this method. You want a funny story?
Yeah, sure.
Mary Bowen's giving this example of, she was coming into her studio. Her pelvis was kind of stiff. It's the first time she put the booster ball on the Cadillac, but she did it. And she's holding on to the push-through bar, and she's making circles with her pelvis, and she goes, oh, this feels good. This is opening up. And then she goes, oh, I can make small ones with my, coccyx bone. And then she goes, oh yeah, my vagina, I can make really big ones with that. Women don't do that enough. Let me do that. And she goes through this whole story, and it's Easter time, and she's thinking about the bunny rabbits that she has, back at home, and the bunny, and they're humping each other nonstop, and she goes, oh, let me try that. And she starts, thrusting with the pelvis back and forth. she's going through this whole story of this consciousness of how she came to this exercise, and then she tells this story at a workshop, and there's this woman with coiffed hair in the background who comes up to her, very dainty lady, and she goes, "When you started talking about the bunny rabbits humping each other, I fell in love with Pilates."
Yes.
But it is. I mean, it's funny, but it is that idea of you're bringing your experience to the method. It doesn't matter
Yes.
what it is, and you know, I mean, she's thinking about her bunny rabbits as she's working out, and Joseph Pilates talks about the cat, talks about the animals in the forest that he would observe. You know, if you're swinging a hammer or you're sewing a quilt, there is experience that's in your hands that should come to the work. So I just
Well said.
I think that should be everyone's opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that you said in your podcast with Darian was around, and I mentioned this to you like in my earlier messages, was around teaching politics and preaching should be things that you're requested to do. It's not a self-intention thing. So like that sense of being invited in, I liked that. And I heard it just in the way you talked about teaching being a talent. Right? When you just kind of so casually said the talent of teaching, like you're coming from this assumption that if you're teaching, it's because you're talented in teaching, not because you thought I could make a buck teaching.
It's a gift. I mean, it's a gift. It's a blessing. It's a responsibility, and it's not something to be taken lightly. And I mean, thank God for the clients, that we have. I mean, they are so generous, and they are so appreciative, and so they're texting me, this is happening, this happened, and I'll show you how far this goes. We have a mechanic, our mechanic, Bob. Bob, we love dearly. And Bob just got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And he's got just about a year. And he's been our mechanic for multiple generations. He would drive my mother-in-law home from the garage when her car would be not functioning. He would stop by the house and check on my parents' car when there was a problem. I mean, he was the neighborhood mechanic, and he was a saint.
Yes.
And we just find out about this, and I'm over at the garage talking with him, and he goes, what I'm really sad about is I won't be able to be here to help my customers. He's a mechanic. I mean, he's a mechanic, but he has that sense of responsibility for the cars of his clients that he's looking at a year to live, and he's thinking, I'm really sad that I won't be there for them. I mean, so how much, I say more, only because, we're hand to hand dealing with people's bodies that they trust with us. How much more should we have that sense of responsibility? So yeah, it is. It's something that should be recognized as a calling, and yeah, those three fields, I think, so often should only be by calling rather than by self-grandizing, which more often than not, especially in those particular fields, it becomes an act of self-grandizing, self-importance, rather than going, oh, I guess maybe the people want me to do this.
Joseph, since you said that, the reason why that resonated with me is because when I take classes from other teachers, or I see people's posts, I see how individuals interact with their clients. Like when you get pictures of that, That's when you see how special people are as teachers.
Yeah, you would hope so. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you hope so, right? So I
You
mean,
hope
like
so.
the good ones are the ones you're like, that's why you're special.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can see how they engage.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, I mean, I tell my clients at the beginning, this is a very intimate dance. You know, I mean, we are moving together,
Yes.
and we're looking to kind of choreograph this thing,
Mm,
and you know, your body is my palette that I'm painting on, you know, I mean,
yes.
and you're trusting me with that. And so, you know, I am taking it very seriously. I'm cursing all the way through. You know, we're laughing in the process, but it's taken seriously because, yeah, this canvas is your body. You're walking out with it,
Yes.
and it reflects upon me. And more importantly, I feel responsible that it's working for you.
Yes. And there's when that's done well, it's done with curiosity, it's done with humility, right? It's done with the
Always.
sense that I'm learning, you're teaching me while I'm teaching you.
Yeah, because again, I mean, if we say each teach the body in front of you, and each body is different, then each body is an opportunity to learn, and you just can't come with the assumption of, oh yeah, I know, you know, I know how this works. And
Yes.
again, from my field, from my background of photography or baking, you know, you are baking bread every day. You've been baking the same recipe for, you know, 5 years, but the humidity changes. You know, the
Yes.
season changes, and when the season changes, you're touching the dough, you're smelling at it, you're feeling it, and you go, oh no, I need to make some adjustments here because
Yes.
it's a different day, or the flour is slightly
Hmm.
different. So you use those senses to make those modifications. And yeah, a new body comes in and you go, oh, this is, you know, this is different. Um,
Yes.
I was, um, our youngest child is well, youngest, they're 30 something now, or something like that. And they're
Something like
non-binary,
that.
something like that.
Right.
They're non-binary. And so they have many friends who are either transitioned or, you know, non-binary. But one of them, you know, we were working with, and it felt like, I mean, the body felt like a dolphin's body. I mean, it was strong, but it was sinewy and kind of long. And I just said outright, I said, you know, this is just a unique experience for me because I've never dealt with a body. You know, the bodies we're used to kind of falling into these more
These set
specific ranges.
categories. Yes. Yes.
And this was something that was, you know, this was uniquely different, and it was beautiful. It was like, this is, you know, this is something different and to be appreciated. And they were very, I mean, they were very kind and appreciative that it was not something that
For
was,
sure.
oh, you know, oh, that's, you know, that's different. I don't know what to do with that.
No,
It was
it's
like,
like it's like you got a new canvas from Denmark and you've been using canvases from Iowa
yeah,
the whole time.
yeah, absolutely. It's like, oh, let's see how this goes. So it was enjoyable, and I again just projecting out, and again when we would be on the pulpit preaching or something, you know, it was like, you people are making all of these divisions amongst yourself. You know, whatever the line that is the, you know, getting everyone up in arms. What are you going to do when someone comes through that door and, you know, they've got body augmentation because, you know, the
Because
technology allows it. You know, they've got
yes,
a chip that's, you know, hanging out of their head, or they've got a tiger's tail grafted onto their body because they can do it. What are you going to say? Oh no, you can't, you know, oh no, you can't, you know, You can't come and sit in my pew. It's like, fuck. I mean, these are people. They're coming in. They're not people, whatever. They want to be there and sit next to you. Let them sit next to you. I don't, a stray cat would come in and sit next to you. You'd say, oh, look at the cat. So yeah, I get a little.
There's a comment here from Soma Movement out. So Ali Green has a comment that says, I am the only expert on my body. Each student is the expert on their own. We must guide them back to themselves.
God bless you, because my body does things I don't know. I don't know.
Supposedly the expert on our bodies. Yes.
I got arthritic fingers, and they'll just lock up on me in the middle of doing the most finest, filing with a file. And oh fuck, I got to reach over and pull it out. But yes. One should know their body. Yeah.
In theory, yes.
As best you can.
As best you can.
Tickle me right there. Just tickle me right there. Just tickle me. That's it. That's the spot right there. Tickle me right there.
Too funny. There's a few comments that flew through here as
you're
talking.
I'll let you scan through them.
Anita was saying earlier that was a beautiful story about the mechanic and just that sense of that was amazing.
It's Bob. Bob over at Ed's Corner Garage.
There you go.
Because before Bob, Ed owned it, but Bob never changed the name.
Yes, that's awesome. That's a great story. And Marta's Yard was saying, "We love you, Joseph, and your uniqueness."
Well, she's lovely. That's very kind of her.
And sorry, someone's saying here. Let me go back to it about something about the role. I just lost it.
Just touching slightly about the body dynamic.
Yes.
And again, it's a story, and it was just a defining example in my mind. Kathy Ross was working on one of her books, and early on, and I was happy enough to go and help her setting up, hammering down the photography and setting up and such like that. And so everything's set up, and I think it was actually Katie Yip on the electric chair.
Okay.
And the exercise was being done, and I'm photographing, and I'm being conscious of everything, and Katie's coming into the exercise, and she kind of hits the point that Kathy wants, and I photograph it, and I hit it. It was right at that moment, looking good. And Kathy looks at the photograph, it's on a larger screen, she's looking at it, and she's kind of going, and I'm kind of, what's wrong? The light's good, everything, what's wrong? And she goes, it doesn't feel right. And she goes, okay, hold on. And she takes Katie through the exercise, but it was like going up front or something. And she takes Katie from, her left big toe all the way up through the movement to her extending finger.
Right.
And there was a life that was breathed into that moment that, the photograph looked, the difference between a cadaver and a living body.
Wow. Yes.
I mean, if you've ever done a cadaver lab, or if you've had the opportunity to move a dead body, they are, dead weight is dead weight. It is kind of lifeless, and you just don't realize how heavy the mass is.
Yes.
But then when you see life, when you see it, with life, spark breathed into it, you go, oh, look at that. And it was just that, and Katie Yip is lovely. She's
Absolutely.
lovely, laying, standing, she's just always beautiful. But, from where I had her to where Kathy had her was completely different. And so
word picture. Like I'm sure everyone who heard that just totally got that.
It was amazing to see. It was just amazing to see. And so it is, that idea of the body being a canvas, but but really it is kind of instilling in that body the most
Infusing
yeah
life.
that it can be. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
So yes, exactly. So Explore Play said return to life indeed, and then Marjo said Karen is a magician. Both are true, right? Yes, Kathy Barthas is definitely a musician, but like you're saying, that infusing life, like getting, it's almost like you're extracting everything out of every movement from all of our essence is like so
Yeah.
key. Yeah.
Absolutely. I had the I'm at the gym working out, and there's a friend, but with quarantine and everything, not being in the gym regularly, and you know they're walking by, and I go, what's going on? Because you're looking different, and I go, you know, I mean, I'm not making any value judgment. It's not weight loss or anything. It's not, you know, you're not more pumped. There's a difference in your movement. And they go, oh, I'm getting married in 2 weeks.
I was waiting for that.
I found the perfect, you know, I found the perfect spouse, the partner for life. And
Yes.
it's just, you know, it just makes all the difference in the world. And I'm like, yeah, you know, you could see it, you know, you could see it manifested in your body. You know, they're the same person. There was no, you know, no augmentation, no, you know, treatments done, but just kind of being able to walk around and go, oh yeah, life is good. You know,
Yeah.
it's visible. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. That's what Pilates does for us too. Just
It should. It really should. It should.
Joseph, man, the time has gone so fast. I gotta jump off, but thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing. I'm so looking forward to doing this again because this has just been super fun.
Just knock on the door whenever you're passing by.
All right, sounds like a plan.
Okay, guy.
All right, thank you, and thank you to everyone who joined us today, man. This is such a
All
good
you
chat.
folks. Just don't quote me back to me. Just don't.
Oh, that quote's coming back up. That totally is coming back up. The one about the medium. That you could run with that one.
Blessings.
All right, take care, my friend.